chapter 8. Despite these great examples, Michelle and I both carry scars from abusive relationships. When I met Michelle, I was less than a year out of a live-in relationship with a violent partner who suffered from mental illness. Both physically and mentally abusive, she was quick to escalate verbal disagreements into physical confrontations. In fact, every verbal disagreement was guaranteed to end in a fight. If that's what you call me trying to keep a 130-pound, 5'0" she-demon from trying to punch me in the face like a man, or kicking me without having to hurt her or kill her. And I did want to hurt her. And she'd haul off and punch me in the face just because I get loud while she's over here screaming at me. And do you have any idea how hard it is not to hurt someone who picks a fight with you and then starts screaming at you, saying the most disrespectful things you can imagine, and then the second you raise your voice at them, they punch you in the face? Very hard, trust me. But as many times as she hit me, I never knocked out cold like I wanted to. And believe me, I wanted to. And it took a whole lot of discipline not to. It always ended up with me having to wrestle her down to the ground and hold her down until she wore herself out and I could make a run for it. And how you probably thinking, well, won't you just walk out of the room and leave or something? Yeah, if I tried to leave a room, she physically wouldn't let me. She'd just block me with her body and keep shoving me, telling me to hit her. I mean, she would not let me walk away from an argument. Now, imagine me trying to walk away from a relationship. It would only end with either A, her shooting herself, for real, B, her shooting me, or C, me going to jail on false charges, every single one of which I knew she was more than crazy enough to do. And before her, I was the type of person that said I'd never stay in a relationship with an abusive partner. The first time they hit me, it'd be over. But until you've actually been in one, you have no idea how hard that can be. Especially if you share a house with them, and the house is your house, and you bought it and own it. You can't just give them your house. And you can't legally make them leave either, at least not right away. You got to serve them an eviction notice, and then spend the next 30 days living with a psycho, hoping they don't shoot themselves or you. And if you try to call the police, you're going to go to jail on domestic violence charges because they got bruises from you wrestling them down when they went apeshit. So what, your lip is split in two and they started the whole damn thing because they're crazy. They're going to throw the both of you in jail and let the judge sort it all out. It's a whole lot harder than people think, and I never would have known it if it hadn't happened to me. They don't start off violent. It increases incrementally. Before you know it, you're in a horrible situation, praying to God for help because you have no good way out of it. I was 40 years old then, and no woman had ever thought I was violent or considered me abusive except for this little sociopath. Hell, I'm not even an asshole unless they're being an asshole. Honestly, that's honestly too. I'm not saying I'm perfect or anything like it, right? But the violence in our relationship was not me, her 28, or even me, her 199. It was 100% her. And every other woman but her will back me up on that. The last straw started as an argument in the car and escalated quickly. It was nighttime and I was driving. Now in the middle of this argument in the car, where I'm driving, she pulls a gun out, chambers around, puts it to her head and says, if I shoot myself right now, it's going to go through my head and hit you too. And I was over here looking at her adjust the angle of the gun, and I was thinking that very same thing myself when she said it. And I could see in her eyes that she was about to do it. And I pulled over and started trying to plead with her. And right as I was pulling over, she jumped out of the car while it was still going, with the wheel still rolling, and jumped out with the gun. And then she ran behind the house. And I'll be honest with you, for a split second, I thought about just speeding off. But I can't explain it any other way than to say that I knew for a fact if I did that, she was going to shoot herself. I just knew it. I knew it. So I jumped out, ran after her, started calling her name. I'm calling out for her. Now I'm going to pause the story right here for a minute to address what I know you're all thinking. You're probably thinking, what an idiot. He should have mashed the gas pedal. Let her kill herself if she wanted to. There's no way in hell I'd have gone after a crazy person with a gun in their hand who just threatened to kill both of us. Well, you are not wrong. I am an idiot for going after a crazy person with a gun in their hand who just threatened to kill both of us. But you have to understand that I really did love the little monster, as crazy as she was. Inside that homicidal maniac, there's actually a very sweet person with a good heart who'd suffered terrible trauma and had a mental illness she couldn't control. When I realized that there was no good way out of the relationship, I doubled down on it. And I decided I was going to love her so damn good she'd have to be normal, even if it killed me. You see how that turned out for me. Anyhow, back to the story now. I was at the part where I just jumped out of the car and ran after her, calling her name. Now, moments later, I heard a single gunshot, and my heart dropped. I just knew I was going to find her laying somewhere with just half her skull missing, blood, brains blown out, all over somebody's backyard. I'm running around hollering for her and stuff, looking for her, thinking I'm going to see her laying there somewhere. And I caught a glimpse of her through some trees, walking back towards the car. I was sprinted over there as fast as I could and jumped in the driver's seat, and she jumped in the passenger seat. She still got the gun. And as I sped home, she had the gun pointed at me on her lap. And she was just screaming and hollering and randomly punching me or grabbing the steering wheel, trying to make us wreck randomly. Oh, God. Now, I knew I had to get the gun. That was my primary thing. But, you know, if you ever have a gun pointed at you like that, somebody got a gun in their hand, a failed attempt can get you killed. If you're going to get it, you got to get it. You got to make sure you get it, right? So I waited, you know, to the very moment she took her eyes off of me, just for a second. Backhanded the shit out of her. And it stunned her for a second, startled her, and I quickly snatched the gun out of her hand. And that was the one and only time I ever hit her. And honestly, I don't feel the tiniest bit bad about it. And not because I hate her or anything like that. Not because I hate her because she pulled a gun on me. I don't hate her. Truly don't hate her. I'm not even mad at her. And I'd given her the very best of me. And it still wasn't good enough. And I was more hurt by that and traumatized from thinking she shot herself than I ever was angry about it to begin with. And besides, carrying around a grudge is just being your own worst enemy. Not something I do. Now, I don't ever want to be around her again. But I truly forgive her and wish her well. And I carry no ill will towards her at all. But as many times as she laid hands on me, blacking my eyes, bruising up my lips, busting up my, bruising up my face, busting my lips and stuff, I'm glad that at least once she got to feel the back of my hand. And I don't regret it a bit. I'm sure some folks are going to be critical of me for speaking so honestly about it. And I'm not bothered by that a bit either. Honesty is what you get with me. And I don't put a whole lot of stock in some people's opinions. Tell you the truth, critics like that were cut from the same cloth as folks that criticize a woman's wardrobe choice on the day she became a rape victim. And I could care less what such folks have to say about things. The God's honest truth is that it felt good to finally hit her back. And I don't feel any victim shame for speaking honestly about my feelings after being abused by a woman. There is no shame in that. I tell you what we should be ashamed of is how many good men are walking around, felonies on their records, for simply defending themselves against violent partners that took advantage of their reluctance to hit a woman. It's a real thing. Domestic violence is such an ugly thing. And I wish I didn't have to tell an ugly story about it. The same book that I tell a story of a beautiful love with a beautiful woman like Mama Michelle. But I have to tell it. And not because I'm trying to raise awareness about an important issue. That's welcome, I guess, but it's only incidental. To get an understanding of where I was in my life when I met Michelle, you have to understand where I was about 10 months prior to that. Another 2 years of living hell I nearly didn't survive. I feel like I've been given a last-minute pardon, and it was so gratifying just living without constant anxiety, stress, and abuse that I swore I would never be in another relationship again. Never. Now, I'd have female friends, and I'd be honest with them. But that's it. And if they didn't like that, then they didn't like me. That was my mindset. And this story is so important for understanding that. But it's also so ugly. And honestly, I grow weary in the retelling of its ugliness. So I'll wrap it up quickly. I just backhanded her and taken the gun from her, but it only made her angrier and even stronger. She started balling up her fist, started screaming like a banshee, leveled up into Super Saiyan Psycho mode. Swear. It was kind of comical for a split second, but only for a second. Now, if you can imagine the frenzied rage of 1,000 angry lunatics trying to kill you all at once, that was what it was like being inside that car with her. Crazy. By the grace of God, we made it home without wrecking. And somehow I was able to escape from her with the gun without having to hit her again or shoot her. And this time I did mash the gas pedal. And I left her there at the house. Left her here at the house by herself. And at that point, she was too angry to kill herself. And she could have burned the whole damn house down at that point to the concrete foundation. I wouldn't even have cared. But she only trashed the place and busted the front window out with a huge creek rock. I thought that was a more than fair price to pay to be rid of her. After that night, I never saw her again.